is up, and welcome back to 24 Minutes of A24, the podcast that takes a look at the A24 library 24 minutes at a time. I am Ethan Simi.
And I'm Ben Lawhorn. This week on the pod, we are asking Black Phillip what thou canst give us as we review Robert Eggers' debut feature film and A24 classic, The Witch.
What went we out into this wilderness to find? Leaving our country, kindred, our fathers' houses. For what? For the kingdom of God. Let us pray.
A family in 1630s New England is torn apart by the forces of witchcraft, black magic, and possession. As is the case with all of our pods, spoilers are ahead for The Witch. If you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you go check it out. Ben, you just watched it a couple hours ago. This was your first time watching it. And we save everything for the pod, right? We try to do live reactions here on the podcast, and we don't want to spoil anything for each other before we get on mic. And you texted me just a couple of hours ago, and all you texted me was just like 8 dots in a row. It's just like dot, 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 dot.
Yeah.
And I was like, well said, Ben. Very well said. Dude, how are you feeling right now? I want to know. I want like the almost instant reaction for The Witch.
I'm feeling bamboozled. I'll tell you that.
You're feeling duped.
I don't know. I think maybe I waited too long to see this or something, but
oh no,
I did not love this movie at all. This was like, I was so bored.
I feel bamboozled right now. I feel duped.
I know. I'm like, this is
Oh
like,
God.
I knew of this movie. This was like the A24, like everyone's like, this is the horror movie. We'll talk about it later. But we asked some of our listeners like, hey, where does this fall for you?
Yeah,
and I think the lowest people ranked it was top 5. Like everyone was like super high on it. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe that's my fault, for waiting so long. There's just like, there's no way it can live up to it. But I don't know. Like I watched it in a similar setting, I was like, well, I'm at my house, like whatever. But I watched I watched Hereditary that same way, and I was freaked out like the whole time. So like, I don't know. I'm paying attention. I don't have my phone on me. Like I'm here. I'm invested, but I'm fucking bored. Like I was just like not into it at all. And I don't know what it was. And I was just like, everyone that's like, yes, this is the top, and like not for me,
Not for this guy.
And I know I'm on the outs anyway with some people about like loving Midsommar, so maybe it's just like a taste thing. Maybe I waited too long, but I'm just kind of like, what? I don't know. This is a rewatch for you though, right? You still high on it?
People are going to be coming for you, Ben. That is a hot take to start this pod, bro. And I will say, listeners of the show, you might notice we kind of have a rebrand. We've kind of re-upped our logo, our colors. This is going to be our first episode on YouTube. We are like filming ourselves, and we're kind of venturing into new territories. So I'm proud of you for just starting so controversial for our new era here on 24 Minutes. This was
I'm wearing my
for
Jordan Clarkson shirt, and his nickname is the Flamethrower, so this felt appropriate because I feel like I'm just like going to be throwing a lot of fire tonight, so let's see what happens.
Very, very in style. Very in style. This was a rewatch for me, and look, I will console you a little bit. I will be honest with you, okay? And it pains me to say this, because I'm a very avid promoter of if you're watching a movie, you should watch the movie. You should turn your phone on silent. You should kind of get rid of the distractions. You should devote your entirety to the project and the art at hand to try to really kind of encompass what you are watching. About halfway through this movie, I had to take a TikTok break. So you're not alone, Ben. You're not alone. I was watching it, and I closed my eyes for a second, and I woke up, and it was like a different image, or like opened my eyes, and it was a different image, and I was like, oh God, like I might have had my eyes closed for like 6 seconds. I think I need to like revamp my brain with a little TikTok, like a little, Gen X social media
juices flowing.
Exactly. A little binge real quick, and then we're back into The Witch. So that happened. But I would say I probably split the difference between you and most of our listeners.
Okay.
I don't think that this is a top 5 A24 horror film. I do think it is a well-structured and a very interesting horror film. But again, you mentioned personal taste. Like, personal taste is not 1930s New England for me. That just like does not wet my whistle, and it's just tough, and that is just entirely down to personal preference, and like the movie is that, and that is how our ending is set up. Like the very final words are like the most 1630s things that you can think of and to say, and it's just like that's just like not my thing. So there's that, but I do think that it really does encompass A24, because we talk all the time on here about like A24 is really good at coming of age stories and they're really good at twist endings.
Yeah.
This ending is fucking crazy. And I don't remember it being so crazy the first time that I watched it. I mean, the final 20 minutes, we're talking about some out of hand shit that goes down. Like what did you think?
That definitely was the most like intriguing part, I think, as again, like this is all spoilers on this pod, but as they're like accusing Anya Taylor-Joy of being the witch, and she's accusing the twins and all that, chaos that's happening when the brother like comes back to life and then does his little speech and then just like dies, like all that stuff is like, man, this is like, it's cool. Like, I think it's interesting for sure, but I'm just not like, I don't get it. It's not holding up or, reaching the levels that I was hoping it was going to reach, I guess. So, I don't know. I mean, that part was cool, but I was also overall just kind of like, all right, like whatever. I don't know.
This happened. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do a couple things before we do True Cinema, before we do A1 Acts. We're going to talk about what some of our listeners thought of the movie, and we have a fun game to play at the end. We're going to do a little A24 horror battle, a little kind of quick wits game, which I'm pretty excited for. So this is Robert Eggers' debut film. We've got The Witch, then we get The Lighthouse, also with A24. I would go out to say that The Lighthouse is probably more revered and more like A24 stamped than The Witch is, at least like in the public eye and the film bro eye. And then you get The Northman. Robert Eggers goes on to a massive studio. He gets $160 million, well, $90 million essentially to make The Northman, to make this great epic that eventually makes its money back on VOD and hitting people's houses. Have you seen The Northman?
No, I still have not.
I didn't think you had, but you've seen The Lighthouse because we did it on this pod.
Indeed.
You like The Lighthouse better, I take it.
Yeah, I mean, Lighthouse, I was looking back at our old ranking system, and that fell into a good time, which was more than I could say for this. So, without a doubt. And I will say my anticipation for Nosferatu is through the roof. Like, I'm so excited about it. Like, that's the thing is, like, this is something that I really wanted to love. Like, I wanted to be like, oh, yeah, I get what everyone's saying here. Yep. Like, this is peak A24 horror. This is the thing. And I was excited about it, and it just didn't do it for me. But I still, have faith in Rob Eggers. I'm excited for Nosferatu. I still need to see The Northman, but it's just like, it's in the queue with the other 200 movies that I want to watch. So it just hasn't made it there yet. Yeah. This would fall into last place as of right now.
Okay. That's actually fair. I actually do have this in last place for me as well. I'm trying to pull up my my Letterboxd, my 2022 movie rankings. I have The Northman at 4th currently, and I've seen like over 50 new movies this year. Okay. And I consider myself somewhat of someone who gets movies, and and so I think The Northman is superiorly underrated, and I think is very, very good. I do think it is his best. I do think The Lighthouse is next in line, and The Witch would be last. But that's just because I feel like The Lighthouse swung a little harder and went a little farther. It is mostly incoherent when you try to figure out, like, what is it about? We don't really know. It's a movie of scenes, right? And it's a movie of incredible monologues. And I think that's more than you can say for The Witch, but I can understand that people are kind of attracted to or drawn to this religious side of horror. And we covered that in the same mod a couple of weeks ago. And I feel like that's just kind of like a subgenre that people really, really like. You want to do True Cinema? You want to start diving into this movie? I have a kind of a short list here.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do it.
All right, let's start this off. So first on the list, I've got the initial one shot we get. We get this really nice oneer of this family kind of being outed from the plantation that they're on. It follows them and just stays on them for like seems like minutes and minutes and minutes.
Yeah.
And we get this really great winter with really eerie music, and then the first cut we get is them surrounded by a fire, which I do think is very telling. It is very important. It is very core kind of to the text of this movie and the power that fire has like over this family. This opening scene didn't grab you.
I mean, it was interesting, like technically for sure, you know, like as someone who like shoots and works in video production on a daily basis, like it was cool. And I enjoyed what they were doing there, where it's like they're leaving one comfort that they have, and the next scene is like them literally around a much smaller version of whatever their new comfort is in this fire.
Right.
So like I liked that kind of stuff, but again, this was just another example of a thing where it was just like I think it was about 40 minutes into this movie, and I was like just waiting for something. Like, what's going on?
Something has to happen.
Like, please, something happen, because I'm losing my mind here. So I thought it was a really cool opening shot. The whole opening is very interesting, where he's like at the council and they like banish him. It's like, oh, this is a guy that's like gonna stick by his guns. That's interesting. That's like, that takes guts, especially in this time frame. Because I'll tell you what, like when that fire scene showed up, that just reminded me like, oh, I was meant to live in this time frame, because I could not have lasted back then. I'd be like, yeah, listen, I'll be whatever religion you want if you give me a house, you know, like I would not have the conviction to like, no, I don't know that this is the right one. Like, yeah, man, this is great. Perfect. I just want my bed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah.
So there's no way I would have survived back then at all.
Absolutely bananas that they're living in a time where they were like, look, Samuel got stolen by a wolf, but you know what? It doesn't fucking matter, because he would have died from starvation anyway. And it's just like, yikes, that is some cold-blooded shit. That's really crazy. I couldn't last either, honestly. I feel like you're kind of like, you know, the meme of Ethan Hawke in First Reformed, where he's like, well, somebody has to do something. I was like, you're living that moment.
Yes.
Okay, we get Thomason's initial confession and praying. I wanted to put this on the list because when I watched this, I questioned, you know, without this scene, without her initial confession and her prayer of basically repenting and trying to draw closer to God and essentially saying like, I have sinned, I have done wrong things, but I still love you. Does this justify the end for her, right? She is the witch as far as we possibly think, and she goes on to be seduced by Lucifer. Like, is this her coming forth and basically saying like, I've sinned and I'm telling you, but I'm gonna keep going down that path?
Yeah, that's the thing though, is like back then too, what a sin was. You know what I mean? It's just like, yeah, it's just like, I don't know, I was really like covetous of someone's apple, so I've sinned today. You know, it's like, all right,
going to hell,
fine. Like, yeah, and that's the thing where it's just like, you know, the little brother freaks out too when like the youngest brother gets stolen. It's like, oh, well, he wasn't like, he hadn't been baptized, right. Is he going to hell and all that kind of stuff? It's just like, this was nuts back then. That's just kind of how you had to like function on your life, you know. So I mean, again, like interesting scene. It hits home just how important the religion is to this family, and obviously that just kind of drives home everything when it comes to the satanic aspect and the witch and all that stuff.
Sam gets stolen while playing peekaboo. Then we basically get our first encounter with the witch, right? The naked witch that is in the woods, in the forest. And as far as we know, sacrifices Samuel, the baby. And then the next thing we see is her covering herself with blood from this baby, like next to a fire, and really doing some weird like witch stuff, honestly. I love the kind of like defying expectations of like, oh, we feel comforted. Like everybody plays peekaboo, right? Like we know how to play peekaboo. Like I play peekaboo with my kids. And it is just something that is comforting, a comforting game that everybody knows how to play. And then you open your eyes, and then your world is different. From that moment on, Anya Taylor-Joy can make that emotion on her face exquisite.
Oh, it was so well done. I mean, again, like there are times where, you know, if I'm watching something, I'm just thinking about how they technically pulled it off. It's like, oh, she's just like kind of like standing over a camera right now, like doing this, you know, like pretending she's reacting to a kid. And the fact that she was able to pull that off was just like, oh, super interesting that you're able to do that. Like, again, like this is just a phrase of like, oh, she's a good actor because she's an actor. It's like kind of a dumb thing to say, but it was super convincing. I think the whole witch thing, again, like I kind of was waiting for the A24 kind of like gotcha, it's oh, like we were going to see the baby was still alive and this woman was like essentially going to kind of like hold it ransom for something. I don't know what, and it's like, okay, so there's just like some berries or whatever that she has mashed up that she's lathering on herself, but then it's like, oh no, that was the baby. That's crazy. So yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, it did leave me wondering for a little bit. It's like, is that really, or are they just like messing with us? But after a while I was like, okay, yeah, no, that was just literally baby's blood right now.
And I do think it is interesting, or would be interesting. This is kind of a moment of divergence, a possible divergence for the movie. So this is the moment in which the family really kind of looks inwards to themselves and their religion and what they believe and how they trust one another and what they think is beyond what they can see, right? It's that the age-old mantra of like, you can't see God, but he is there. You can't see this witch, but she is there. I wonder from like, what you kind of mentioned, if this changes lanes and kind of goes like more A24, quote unquote, of like the witch terrorizes them, or the witch comes back and then steals Caleb, or the witch comes back and like slaughters the animals, or like we keep getting these like continuous knocks on the door. I think that could have been equally effective, maybe not in terms of the religious aspect, but like this idea that Satan and this like kind of the book that you sign, essentially, according to this movie, is continually presented to you and continually knocking on the door. I think that would have made for an interesting movie, maybe better. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it would have been, just to focus more on that, I guess leaving it maybe a little vague or about the supernatural or something. But, as it says at the end of the movie, this is all based off of like texts and folklore and stuff like that from the 1630s. And so from what I could tell, he kept it pretty, honest and organic to that time frame. So, I think they did a good job of like making the time frame seem very believable.
And that's the thing with Robert Eggers. I don't know how many people know, and I just happen to like kind of know every project that he does. He's just like a history nut for that thing for like X number of months and years. So like The Northman took him a long time to make because he got so involved in Viking history and what that would have been and looked like and felt like. And so he obviously with The Witch as well, like he just stays exceptionally true to the text and the history of things while incorporating his kind of cinematic twist, which I do think is interesting. I've got Thomasin doing the Witch of the Wood speech to her little sister. I don't know, dude. This might, I don't know.
I mean, this might have been my favorite part because we saw like Thomasin, the whole first part of the movie, we're seeing the twins just like disobey her, and the mom's like, you're supposed to keep track of them. It's like, they don't listen to me, like. And so you see her frustrations with this because she's the oldest. So she, she's the oldest female in the family besides the mom. So she kind of becomes second mom, just like the oldest son is the oldest male. So he now has to like go help, with whatever, the plowing and all the farming and stuff like that. But we hear her talk about like, oh, they don't pay attention to me. So when she did this and she's like, yeah, you know what? I am the witch actually. So if you don't pay attention to me, I'm going to fuck you up.
Yeah.
I was like, cool. Yes. Use that. That's great. That's fantastic. Like get some authority, get some fear into this child so that like they will pay attention to you. So I was fully on board. Like do what you need to do because like, what are punishments for these kids back then? Like there's no timeout. Like I'm taking away your TV. Like what? That's the most boring time to live anyway. Like how do you punish kids in the 1630s? It's like, go stand in the corner. It's like, oh, you mean where I sleep? It's like, what do you, I don't know. What do you do to kids back then? So yeah, if you can scare them by letting them think that you're a witch, like I'm fully on board. I sign off on it.
You got to go Blair Witch style. Be like, go stand in the corner, face the corner. We're going to turn all the lights off and you're just going to be down there. That's
exactly.
That's how it
you're just
goes.
going to be stuck there.
I do wonder if, okay, so let me ask you a preemptive question before I kind of start my small train of thought here. So this movie is called The Witch. Obviously, there is a witch that lives in the woods. Is Thomasin a witch? Is she what this movie is about? Is she the purpose for these things happening? Or is it the twins like we are led to believe? Or is it the mom who is devoutly religious through and through and through. Like, who is the witch? Because I'm curious, in relation to this scene, it felt to me like Thomasin kind of broke her barrier for a second. It was like, oh, yeah, I get to be who I really am. I get to kind of explore this nature to myself that is definitely more sinister, and I'm going to test it out, because she does not let up. She is like, I'm going to sink my teeth into your skin. And at that point, you're just like, let's fucking dial it back a little bit. We're by the we're by the creek. Nobody's here. Let's just chill. And that's why I was like, oh man, like maybe this is like preemptively telling us like she is the problem.
Yes, and I loved it. Like that's the like one thing I loved. Like when it came to the title, you know, it's just for me it is Thomasin. Like I know like she's not a witch and all that kind of stuff, but for a majority of the people in this family in the movie or whatever, like that's who she is. And so that's who like she represents as like this title character in my mind. Obviously we met like the real witch, like we saw that person. And you know, obviously there's like the Black Phillip of it all as well. But to me, this title refers specifically to Thomasin. Like that's what this is about for sure.
Yeah, totally. Okay, next on the list, I have the bed conversation between William and Catherine, the mom and the dad. I just wanted to put this on the list because I think it was very intriguing, the juxtaposition of their kind of stream of consciousness, how William is always thinking positively, and he says, you know, that this is okay, things are going to be all right. And then you have Catherine, who is like, no, this family's cursed, and we're fucked, and like we're done. People are going to die, and this is the end of times. I don't know if there's a whole lot to explore there, if you have any comments, but I did think it was important because this scene lasted forever.
Yeah, honestly though, like my takeaway from this scene has nothing to do with that. Whenever I see stuff like this, like if you ever watched old episodes of like Little House on the Prairie, it's like if you guys all almost live in the same room, like how quiet are you having sex to have 5 kids? You know what I mean? Like there are 4 other people in the room with you right now, and somehow you also had another baby. It's just like that just seems so weird to me. But you know, I guess everyone's got their needs and you'll make it work. But dude, that's all I think about when I see this kind of stuff. It's like, how's this functioning? But
how are we doing this? You know, life, I will say to your point, we've broken our streak, our 3-week hand job streak. So we did. Lost. Yeah. Damn. Too bad. Oh,
dang it.
Man, I'm sure they were giving handies back in the 1600s, man. They had to figure that out. Sure. Okay, couple more. Caleb spits out the rotten apple. We have an explosion of possession, and Caleb dies after his monologue. This is kind of the big breakthrough. This is the big religious moment. Caleb comes back looking like death. He spits out that apple, which is, you know, very telling of the conversation that he had with his dad of like, we are all born with sin. What is this sin that we were born with? And you know, the story of Adam and Eve and biting the apple and kind of the innate sinful nature of man. And then he like clings to God and is like, this is amazing. I see you. Only thing I thought about during the scene, how impressive is this child actor? I was like, this guy's got it locked in.
He was so good. I don't know if you read the trivia like after watching this, but I guess Robert Eggers like doesn't have kids or didn't at this point. So he said like he had a hard time connecting with this kid. I think his name's Harvey something. But he used Ralph Ineson a lot because Ralph Ineson had 2 young kids. Okay. And so he was able to kind of like give him direction. And I guess part of the thing was he was getting him fired up about football, like it's America, we call it soccer, but like getting him hyped up and like using that as like the training montage, like, all right, you're going to be doing this, you know, it's like this kind of a thing. It's like, cool. Like you knew what this kid needed to get like amped up, and it totally worked because I think he was amazing in this. I like the whole cast is pretty solid, but like, you know, him, Anya Taylor-Joy, like they have to hold a lot of this stuff along with Ralph Ineson. So he did great. This was a wonderful scene.
Possible contender for a Who Won the Movie rewatchable style award there. Boarded up in the barn. I've only got 2 more. Boarded up in the barn. The witch comes, and this is where we see Thomasin and the twins, Jonas and Mercy. They all get boarded up because nobody knows who the witch is. Nobody knows who to believe. And the dad is just like off his fucking rocker, just like losing his mind, calling Anya Taylor-Joy's character all sorts of slander. Her mom is just digging into it. This is when things go really, really south. And he boards them up, and we see the witch come, and then we get like a smash cut to the next morning, essentially, and that kind of like kicks off the final scene. But this is crazy because this is like this is a moment where you realize like nobody knows what's going down.
Yeah, nobody knows. And also, like, once the dad comes out and just sees all the boards are broken and Thomason is laying kind of half outside the barn and the lambs are dead and there's no one else there, then it's like, okay, yeah, you must be the devil then, because like, what other explanation is there for this?
Yeah,
you know, it's like, oh, she's in a lose-lose situation. There's no way to talk your way out of this. So that was, I don't know. Also, like, I mean, the cast is small, but those twins were also awesome. Like, they were annoying as hell when they needed to be. They were charming when they needed to be. And just seeing them like huddled with each other in this barn was like so kind of heartbreaking to watch. But they were wonderful. And yeah, this scene was, I mean, just, I don't know. It was so intense, like watching her with that lamb, just like kind of like going after it. And then, like you said, the smash cut to the next morning. It's like, oh shit, like stuff went down for sure.
Yeah, that was crazy. And so then that takes us to our final thing. We get that smash cut, right? And then out of like we are basically from a POV of William here, the dad of Ralph Ineson's character. And he sees and us, much like him, we are trying to wrap our minds around like, okay, how did we get here? What must have transpired overnight? Where did the witch go? Where are the twins? How did Thomason escape? How did she get away? Did she make a deal with the devil? Like, is Black Phillip actually Lucifer? Like, what the hell went down? And we're from his POV, and then all of the sudden, fucking Black Phillip just out of right field ramming this dude. And that was the moment where I was like, I do not remember this movie being this crazy. Like, I do not remember it being this intense. He rams him, and I do think it is worth noting that he dies beneath his pile of wood. He gets called out by Thomason for being like, you can only chop wood. That is literally the only fucking thing that you do for our family is chop wood. You're a terrible dad. Thomason then gets into a fight with her mom and murders her, kills her right then and there. And then we get Black Phillip essentially turning halfway into Lucifer, having a face and having like a hand-ish kind of a thing. And he says, wouldst thou like to live deliciously? Then she strips down, she heads out to the woods naked, she finds the big fire with everybody floating, and that's kind of how we end things. Absolutely nonsensical ending to this movie.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it works for what the movie is. Like I said earlier, like this wasn't really my thing, but the last 20 minutes is without a doubt like the best part of this. I'd say, you know, from the whole Caleb situation to the end, I think that works really well. But this last little bit is just like pure chaos. Now I kept waiting for Black Phillip to like hit the mom when she was on top of Thomason. Like I thought that's like, you know, Black Phillip was going to take care of her as well. So yeah, to see Thomason actually take it into her own hands, I think also it worked for the story better, you know, that she finally was able to stand up against her mom, so to speak. So yeah, pure chaos. It was all just kind of nuts. But for me, my true cinema is it's in all this stuff that we just haven't talked about it specifically, but it's the mom like hallucinating the son and the baby coming back.
Oh my God. How did we not talk about that, bro?
Like when she sees them and then like starts like cuddling them. And we're like, oh my God, like maybe like the witch or whatever brought them back like as an exchange for the twins. Like I don't know exactly what's happening here. And then we just cut to this like kind of like medium shot of her sitting in a chair and the crow just like pecking away at her nipple. You know what I mean? It's just like, and she's just sitting there smiling, just like in some state of, you know, euphoria because she's just like, she thinks she's seeing something that she's not. I was like, whoa, that was such a crazy shot. And then the next morning she gets up and she's like a blood soaked shirt, you know, and it's like, oh, that really happened. Like that was absurd.
Yeah, that was crazy. I do think it is interesting, at least like the mom's storyline. I think she is possibly the most interesting character to me because every single time she talks or has to deal with a situation, we are on the brink of insanity, right? We are on the brink of like not knowing what is the difference between reality and prayer and devout religion. And I think that is a really kind of big theme for this movie is like, when do you stop believing in what you believe in order to accept a reality? Like how does that all kind of intermix? So I do think that's interesting. That's a great part that you bring up. I'm also gonna go. I'm gonna go off the beaten path. We both agree that the final 20 minutes is just insane. It's amazing, wild stuff. Yeah. I'm gonna go with the part in which Caleb gets lost in the woods and he finds the witch, quote unquote, a version of the witch, a modified version of the witch. We see him kind of like lustfully looking at Thomasin and her chest for like multiple times, which I think is a very interesting subplot that I don't necessarily know is needed. But see
the mom calls Thomasin out on that at the end, right? Because like,
it calls her
like
whore.
one of the last things that she says to her. Yeah, it's just like,
calls her
put like filthy thoughts in your brother's mind. So she's like, what did I do? Like, yeah,
crazy stuff. But he finds the witch, and she is an absurdly attractive Red Riding Hood, essentially witch, and they start kissing, like making out, and like I just thought that was interesting from the storytelling perspective of like, okay, she lives in the woods, she can take the form of whatever type of lustful sin that you are attracted to or find yourself involved with, and she is inescapable. She is alluring, and that is something that Caleb goes towards, and that kind of sets off the big chain of events, right, from that moment. But if Thomasin never goes to the woods with him, we never get lost, and that is where William and Catherine were coming from. So I think that's my moment.
Cool. Yeah.
Lots of interesting things. Okay, we've got an A1 act for Anya Taylor-Joy. Then we're going to talk about some listener responses. We're going to do our knockout horror A24 game here. Anya Taylor-Joy, we've got The Witch, obviously. We've got Split, Emma, The New Mutants, Last Night in Soho, The Northman, Peaky Blinders, Amsterdam, and The Queen's Gambit. She's also going to be Princess Peach, I believe, in the new Super Mario Bros. Movie. She has Furiosa coming out in the future. She is a hot commodity in Hollywood right now.
Sure.
She's who you want in your movies, and it's great to see her in The Northman as well, another Robert Eggers film. And you know what? No, I'm not going to do it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to pick The New Mutants and be funny, but I'm not going to do it because that movie's abysmal. It's very, very bad. I haven't seen The Queen's Gambit. I've heard it's very good.
Oh, she's fantastic in it. She's really, really good.
Okay. I've got to go with The Northman. I've got to go with The Northman. I like them. I just like that movie too much, and I think she's good. She's very like an astrological driven character who like understands like kind of the fate of things, and it's not set in the 1600s. It's set in like the 1800s, so I can kind of vibe with it a little bit better.
All right, I could dig that. I am going to go with Last Night in Soho, which, given her character's name in this movie, is kind of funny because she plays opposite Thomasin McKenzie in that movie. And they both are great in that. So, not at all my favorite Edgar Wright movie, but she does a really good job in it. So I'm going to go with Last Night in Soho.
I like that. That's a good pick. Okay. Let's read some Instagram comments here. We got a few from a few different people. We asked where this ranked among people's A24 horror movies. And we feel differently than most people feel differently. So the podcast that nobody asked for said Midsommar takes the 1 spot for me, but The Witch is in contention for taking 2. That's a fucking bold statement. That's bold.
I love it.
That's
I was with you on the first half of that sentence for sure.
Had me in the first half.
Midsommar does take the 1 spot, but yeah.
We got I Am Starlord 68 says The Witch is number 1 A24 horror for me. Full of dread, beautifully shot, Anya Taylor-Joy, ... Again, 2 bold statements in a row. Number 1. I mean, like I respect. Like I really respect. I think that is incredible that people think it's number 1. Caleb Jeter's got it in the top 5.
Mm-hmm.
And not quite in your top 5, not quite in my top 5, but I get top 5. We got Movie Pit Podcast saying it's in the top 3. Austin D. Warner saying it's easily in the top 5. Not just saying it's in the top 5, but saying easily in the top 5.
Past guest Austin Warner, shout out. What's up, man?
Yeah, shout out. Excellent guest. And then we've got Andrew Vella. Also was on our 1-year anniversary episode. Great guy. I'm taking classes with him right now. He says it is at the top. All caps. Eggers has redefined what it means to be a horror film. People fucking love this movie, bro. What is wrong with us? What did we do wrong?
I don't know. I have no idea, but I genuinely hope people like hit us up after this. I want to hear where we went wrong on this. I really do.
Yeah, I want to get some people. I want to do a little rehash. I want to talk about this. Last thing from a listener, Jordan at Mighty Jor on Twitter said it is better than Midsommar and Hereditary. He then followed up that tweet. He felt it necessary to come with some more backup, and he said Midsommar is all shock and no substance. How are we feeling about that? I feel like he was trying to fight you, Ben. I feel like he was coming for you.
I feel like I was getting bullied online. No, I'm just kidding, Jordan. But man,
we love you, Jordan.
Really
great listener of the pod. Jordan's great.
it just cut to my core. It's like all shock and no substance. Like I just started going through everything in my head. It's like, are you kidding me? Like she's with this family trauma. She's got a gaslighting boyfriend. Like she's learning how to become like just all this kind of stuff. Like all shock is like, for me, that is like, well, that belongs more to Hereditary because that's like full of like a lot of shock, a lot of, and I also like Hereditary though. I think there's substance there as well. To me, this movie was like no shock and no substance. So I don't know, but I have to stand up for my Queen Florence Pugh and Midsommar.
Oh yeah. We don't take any flow slander on this pod.
Can't do that.
No way. Not on this pod. I think I've seen the same thing said about Uncut Gems as well, because Uncut Gems has such a startling end, right? It is the definition of shock when it comes to like the final 3 minutes, and people are like, wow, that's a crazy movie, but it doesn't mean anything. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? It means everything. It is the definition of like, what is wrong with this guy? It is a deep and intellectual character study. All of that to say, I just wanted to segue and say some news came out today. Safdie brothers, Adam Sandler, teaming up with Netflix. They're making a movie about a guy who is devoted to high-value sports card trading. We have a fucking banger on our hands, Ben.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait. I'm so excited.
It's not A24. We're going to cover it on the pod. I don't even care.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about it. Okay. Knockout game before we do our rankings. The Witch versus, I'm going to give you another A24 horror movie. You got to tell me who wins in the matchup. Okay? This is how we're going to kind of get down to brass tacks and figure out where we rank most of these A24 horror movies. And this is a short list, keep in mind. This is not every A24 horror movie. This does not include certain things. And some people might say Enemy could be defined as a psychological horror, things like that. We've kept it rather short.
Okay.
Are you ready to play the game? Are you?
I think so. I'm ready. Okay. Let's throw these flames. Let's do it.
All right, let's do this thing. Okay, so we've got The Witch versus Lamb.
Lamb.
Wow.
Listen,
you were not messing around this episode.
Once. I don't plan on saying The Witch once this whole list. But let's see what we've got.
The Witch versus Saint Maud.
Saint Maud, yeah.
Yeah, it's Saint Maud. Pretty boring, but it's Saint Maud.
Yeah, without a doubt.
The Witch versus Tusk.
Listen, only one of these movies has Justin Long as a walrus, so I have to go with that one. I'm sorry.
And only one of these was directed by Kevin Smith, so it is the correct answer. The Witch versus X.
Whichever one of these movies has Kid Cudi as a porn star, that's the one I'm going to choose for sure.
Easy choice. The Witch versus Pearl. Have you seen? I don't believe you have seen Pearl yet, Ben.
No, there's a couple on here that I haven't seen yet, but I can pretty confidently say I would rather watch Pearl than watch this again.
I can back you up and say that Pearl is a far superior movie than The Witch, at least in my eyes. Not according to some of our listeners, and I'm sure people are just getting absolutely enraged listening to this, right? They're just probably just like flipping desks like Succession style. And they're just like, no, I'm not having this. Okay, The Witch versus The Lighthouse. We've got an Eggers matchup here.
Lighthouse. I mean, you're giving me Defoe and Pattinson. Like, I can't turn that down.
No, all day. The Witch versus It Comes at Night.
I mean, ask me next week. I think this might be what we're covering, but I don't know right now. But yeah, these next two I haven't seen, but I'm still just going to go with It Comes at Night.
Go with it. The Witch versus A Ghost Story. Going to go with A Ghost Story.
Ghost Story, sure.
Yeah. Easy choice. Okay, The Witch versus Green Room. This should be no surprise to anybody.
I mean, Green Room for sure. Jade, you broke my heart that you didn't absolutely love this movie. I respect it, but I was like, I really wanted you to love this movie because I would have felt some sort of validation, but Green Room all day.
Yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough having the next co-host in line not really vibe with you.
she's knocking at the door for sure.
Tough go. Okay, The Witch versus Bodies.
Bodies, for sure. Yeah, I loved it.
I feel like that's a controversial take, honestly. And I support you. I do think I like Bodies better. I just like it. I try to determine this by like, if I had no plans tonight, right? And if someone came over and they were like, yo, I got a Blu-ray of Bodies, I got a Blu-ray of The Witch, which one are we watching? I was like, yo, which one's got Pete Davidson in it? That's the one we're watching. Yep. And which one's got Rachel Sennett in it? That's the one we're watching.
Yeah, she's a podcaster. It's really hard to do, you guys. We have to Google Doc, so Google hard. Calendar. Come on.
I have to get the calendar. I have to get the guests on. Okay, I'm gonna switch up the order here. The Witch versus Climax. I don't know.
I thought you were going to say this one for the end because I was going to say this might be the one
where
I would choose The Witch only because the climax it is so much like
It's fucked
such
up.
an uncomfortable feeling for like an hour and a half. Like Hereditary makes me really uncomfortable, but Climax was just like, what is happening for an hour and a half straight? It is so, and the fact that it's all like a oneer and all that kind of stuff, it's just like, ooh, I might just throw on the Witch just so I could like be on my phone, like I don't know if I could do that with Climax.
I can't. Yeah, I cannot, in good conscience, pick Climax. I just the very specific scene of like the mother finding her child electrocuted in like the electricity closet. It's too much for me. It's just too much. And like that's how I feel about Mother as well. Like I respect the hell out of that movie. I feel like I've talked about it here on the pod before, but like that moment when there is a baby involved in certain scenes, I just check out. I will not ever revisit. It's just too much for me. Okay, The Witch versus Midsommar. We know how this will end.
Yeah.
The Witch versus Hereditary.
Oh, again, like this is like teetering on climax stuff, but I mean, one of these movies has Toni Collette, so I would definitely go with this for sure.
And The Witch versus Men.
This was actually really interesting. I think I honestly would rather revisit Men than Witch. Like, I think I want to see it again. Rory Kinnear is awesome in it.
He's hilarious.
I want to see. I would like to take it for another spin. Like, I kind of feel like I'm done with this movie. So yeah.
It's the ultimate yin and yang because Men is, I think it is quite solid up until about the last 20 minutes, and it loses its bearings. The Witch is not super solid up until the last 20 minutes, and then it's a banger. So you've kind of got these juxtapositioned kind of like in different, ideas of one another. Yeah. That's a tough one. That might be like an really on the day decision. That might be like a game time decision there. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's do our A24 ranking. Got the A, B, C, D, and F24. I am so curious where you are going to put this. We've only had this ranking system for a few weeks now, and we've been pretty moderate with it. I feel like we've been, sticking to our guns and just testing out the waters. But I feel like you're in a rare mood here.
I mean, I am. I don't know what to tell you. This has not been handed out by either of us yet, and I don't think it will be handed this, very often. But this is an F24 for me, man.
Wow, this is madness.
I don't know, man. Like, there are redeeming qualities. Like, maybe it's a D-. Like, again, Anya Taylor-Joy, Ralph Ineson. Also, it might be like Rafe Ineson, like Ray Fiennes. I don't know, but he's been Ralph the whole time. But like, they give good performances. I just didn't care what they were doing, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Totally. It's just like, I mean, you guys are doing a good job. I just don't give a shit. So for me, this is it's a F24. I'm sorry to everyone. Wow. Please still listen and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. If you want Jade to come on and take over the spot, I totally get it. But for me, this is where it falls. I got to be honest with myself.
You are not setting this pod up for success. This is our first episode on YouTube. People are gonna find us and they're gonna be like, last. "Who the fuck is this co-host giving an F to the Witch? Get him out of here! They're gonna never watch us again." Oh my gosh! Wow, that was brutal. Okay, I respect that. I respect that. Stick to your guns. I like that. I'm gonna go with I don't know. I'm gonna go with I don't know. I'm gonna go. Okay, I got it. I'm locked in. I'm gonna go with a D plus 24.
Okay.
I feel like it could be teetering on a C minus for me, but again, like when you look at the big picture and you say like, hey, how interested and enthralled would I be to watch this again? I do not find myself seeking this movie out again. I feel like you definitely get different things each time you watch it now that I've seen it twice, but I still feel like it is pretty self-encompassing. It is very lofty in its storytelling. It is very like deep and a lot to think about when it comes to religion and reality and all of these things. I do think there's some good performances, like you mentioned, but like it's just a little bit too kind of like non-tangible for me. Like I just wish something would have been a little bit more intense or a little bit more grounded or a little bit more pointed of like who is the witch and like the witch does bad things, like, and I know that wasn't the point of the movie, but that's where we're at. That's how I feel.
I mean, I think that's a lot of it too. Or it's just like I thought maybe either give us more Black Phillip or give us more of the witch or something, but everything was just like spread out too thin that I didn't really care about any of it until the very last, like when he becomes his human form or whatever. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I think I would have been like, you would have, really piqued my interest if this had happened like maybe halfway through the movie and not in the last 5 minutes. Cause now I'm just like, all right, cool. But it's like done, it's like, I don't know. Everyone's dead. It's just like, all right, whatever. So I don't know. Maybe someday we will start a Patreon and you guys can pay for me to watch this again.
Genius idea. We will say, we got to get you to rewatch The Witch. We got to do like a live rewatch with Ben.
A punishment watch. Yeah.
A punishment watch. I love that. What if this is my last question to you in hopes of salvation, in hopes of trying to write this movie for you. If this were, and you say it stretched a little too thin, and I agree with you there. I think if we were focused on Thomason more, I think it would have been a little bit better. I think we tried to engage with every single person's core conscience, and it might be a little bit much to handle in 90 minutes, 92 minutes. If this were a 10-part miniseries on HBO Max, would this play any better? Or would it be worse, maybe? We're spending too much time doing these things.
I mean, you know what? Make it like a 6-part and give me one episode on each member of the family. Give me dad, mom, Thomason, Caleb, the twins, and then like a final episode that like really brings it all together. Like give me their viewpoints, like, because I think it's a really good point. Like everyone is just spread too thin. Like all of a sudden the twins can talk to Black Caleb. It's like, well, what happened there? Like I want to know what happened, because obviously at least the sister can communicate. It's like, how did this happen? Why is no one else? So give me that backstory. It's very rare that I want like more of something, but this might be the instance where it's like, yeah, maybe if we dug in deeper on everyone, then I'd be like, oh, okay, cool. I like this, like, and I think you could almost tell it in that order, but yeah, I think, give me a 6-part where one on each family member, and then let's wrap it up at the end.
I think it's genius. HBO Max, you heard the man. Make it happen.
Yeah, Robert Eggers, if you're on break from editing Nosferatu, again, like I appreciate you. I respect you. Like this is no reflection on you as a person. This just didn't work for me, but please come on the pod. Tell me why I'm wrong. Please, let's do this. Let's do it.
I want to get that on the pod. I want to hear that argument for sure.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, give me the 6-parter. I would love to, honestly, I said it earlier and I really mean it. I would love to hear back from people about why I'm up in the night on this, why this is like almost offensive, but to give it an F24, but I just got to be true to myself. But you can let me know all of your thoughts. You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at 24 minutes of A24. I am Ben Lawhorn.
And I am Ethan Simi. Spring break forever, bitches.